Hi, my name is Elizabeth. I'm 28 years old. I was born in Fort Worth, Texas, and this is my story. Content warning, I will be talking about some rough subjects, sexual assault, bulimia and self-harm, and a little bit of some other stuff that's kind of hard to hear. I will be naming some people in this their real names, and then some people I'll be changing their names. Some of my earliest memories are from living with my biological mother. Her name is Amber. And my father, I don't really know his real name. I was told a name, but I don't know if it's really accurate. He was never in the picture. So I was with my mom from what I remember until I was 4. Now, I just got my CPS case back actually last week, and I requested it when I was 21 and now I'm 28.
So it took that long?
Yeah.
And is there a reason for that? Is it just the system? Or?
I'm not sure, honestly, like why it took that long and me requesting it twice. Yeah, so I just now got it, and I got more clarity on like the actual like time that I was with my mom. But what they had said on that CPS case basically is I was with her till I was like 3. And then around like 3.5, I started also living with my grandparents and going back and forth between that time. Now, what I was told is that my dad was a drug dealer, and that worked out well for my mom because my mom was a drug addict and an alcoholic. My mom had 6 other kids. I'm the oldest out of 6 of them. For a period of time when I was living with my mom, I was also living with a woman named Terry. Now, Terry is somebody who also adopted one of my biological siblings, and my biological sibling that she adopted, her name is Bree. So for a period of time, I lived with them because my mom was going to give birth, to my sister and then give my sister to Terry. I don't know exactly like how long like that period was that I was living with them like completely together, but something that happened during that time is there was one day where I had went to Terry and I had said, I want candy. And she said, okay, do you have candy? And I said, yeah, I do. It's in mommy's room. She said, okay, come bring me the candy. And so I did, but it was a pill bottle and it was sleeping pills. And so my mom had been giving me sleeping pills so she could do drugs, without me getting into everything or, be passed out from the drugs or alcohol without me getting into everything. And Terry wanted to adopt me, and she had looked up like lawyers, and sought like legal aid for that. But ultimately, like they said that there was nothing that she could do because there was really no proof of anything.
So how did Terry know your mom?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she kind of just like came into the picture.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And then were your mom and dad together at this time, or they kind of just had this like drug dealer relationship kind of thing? Okay.
But like everyone had told me this is what he was doing. He's actually like from Mexico and they do this kind of together. And it was just a really like wild time. She had told him, about me, and he supposedly had said like, I don't want anything, to do with that. But he later came at 3 to my grandparents' house and said like, I want something. And my grandparents were like, no. Yeah. You're not going to do that. So Terry had sought the legal aid, and they said there was nothing that you could do because my mom was trying to actually take me like in the middle of the night. It was probably like 3 a.m. Terry had said, and she was like, no, don't take her. She knew that was not a good place. Yeah. And so the lawyer was like, there's nothing. And so I ultimately stayed with my mom. And at this time, I really just remember being with my mom. I don't really remember being with my grandparents much, but I remember that there was one specific time where I was with my mom. She had told me she was going to the store for a cake. I thought she was going to the store for a cake because it was my birthday. Come to find out in the CPS case, I was 4. So of course, I don't know the exact, details, but she said she was going to come back, and she left me with 3 men. And I remember being 3 men, and I do remember her saying that she was going to come bring me a cake. She didn't come back, and I don't remember bits and parts of the rest of it, but the CPS case is what pieces it all together. I remember something happening to me, but I didn't remember exactly what it was. And I had always said that this one person named Jesse had did something to me. In the CPS case, I told 3 different people, something had happened to me. I was assaulted. I had went to a neighbor. I don't even know how I got to the neighbor exactly. There was supposedly that I just walked over there, and then it was again of, oh, they just took you over there because they didn't want you anymore. So the cops had showed up. Of course, they took me. I was terrified of cops, like terrified. So I do remember like the cops showing up, and I don't remember like talking to them, but I remember them coming, and then they took me to the hospital, but I don't remember that either. So of course, they took me to the hospital for a sexual assault exam, and that was rough.
Did you know those men at all?
I feel like I remember Jesse, but I don't remember the rest of them. I remember there were 3.
And you don't know why they were there. She just kind of left you with...
Yeah. Supposedly it was one of her boyfriends. Okay. Yeah. And in the CPS case that I got back, it says like it was a known crack house that I was in. And I had been there many times. The neighbor had said I'd lived there basically part-time. Okay. Yeah. I went to the hospital, got the sexual assault exam, and they ultimately said like, okay, there's no penetration, but we're not saying that something didn't happen. And like the officers had said like, yeah, her underwear on backwards, like her pants are on backwards, like she's told, 3 different people, this is what happened. They put me in foster care, but I don't remember that. I remember being with my grandparents, but they put me in foster care. I don't know exactly how long, but I was there, and I was with a lady, and then my grandparents showed up and were like, no, we want her. And so my grandparents took me and fought for me.
And this was your mom's parents?
Kind of.
Okay.
Not biologically. Technically, that gets a little bit messy as well. So my biological grandma, she had remarried my grandpa, which is the one I'm talking about. Okay. And then she passed away before I was born. And then he remarried my grandma, who I'm talking about today as well.
Got it.
Yeah. It is a lot. Yeah. So I was with them from the time I remember being 4 to 7. During that time, of course, it was really hard because I still had visitation rights with my mom. And I always tell everybody this, that I feel like I know that the court system wants to favor the moms and do reunification, but that's not always a good thing. I say that if they would have cut off rights at 3, I would have been way better off. Unfortunately, sad to say, but it's true. I still saw a lot of things going back and forth between the houses, and it was just a lot of instability.
Were you able to see your sister still?
No.
Okay.
So that's another thing. I don't know if my mom actually hid her pregnancy, or that they thought that maybe it would be like saving me some kind of trauma of not acknowledging that I had a sister. But they said that I didn't have a sister. And so I was like, I'm crazy. I know I have a sister. And I would call her Beezy because I couldn't say her real name. And I'd be like, no, like I have a sister and her name is Beezy. And they'd be like, no, you don't. And so I really thought I'm crazy. And so I didn't see my sister again until I was, I believe, 16.
Wow.
Yeah. And her mom got in contact with me. Like at that time, it was like, we've been looking for you all of these years. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy that it was, and so that wasn't even in the documents that you had a sibling?
Well, yeah, it was in the documents that I had said that I had a sibling, but it was
like no proof of it, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I had named like my brother and my sister, like, oh yeah, like I have siblings and these are their names, but it was never like any proof.
Right.
Yeah. Crazy. So during living with the time with my grandparents, of course, I was really traumatized from everything that I went through. I was really rebellious, angry, really sad. I would cry for hours, and I mean hours, for my mom. It was not good because we would, have visitation and then she wouldn't come. And I would literally like sit by the window and cry for hours up until the time that I had to go to sleep. And then the next day I'd realize, she didn't come, and I'd start crying all over again. So I bet that was really hard for my grandparents, but, it was really hard for me as well. Yeah. And my grandpa, he was actually a part of a really famous biker club. It's called the Winos Crew. They have chapters all over. And him being the president, I don't think that it was necessarily a good life for a child as well, because I was not always in his care either. I was with other people that could take care of me on the weekends when he had to do what he had to do for the biker club. He was like my protector. He was my only, father figure that I had, and I loved him, so much. But around the time I was, I believe, 7.5, I just found this out probably a few years ago as well. My grandma had given him an ultimatum and had said, it's me or her. She had said, I never wanted a kid. She's not biological, to me. She's not biological to you. And she is a mess. And I was a mess. And it really hurt me, to find out, that he ultimately chose her. And so he said, okay. And he gave me to his boss. He had worked for a man, and they were struggling to have kids. And so he thought that in his mind, these are good Christian people that have money and want a kid, and they can't have a kid. So let me give them to her. So he did. And that was a really bad decision.
I can't even believe, I guess, who would really know technically, but I can't believe that's allowed. Just
here you go.
Right. Yeah. Just dig her, Yeah. And I'm assuming you didn't have that great of a relationship with your grandma.
No, it was very estranged for sure. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So I started living with this family. I'm going to call the man Tim, and I'll call the woman Lisa. So Tim and Lisa, I lived with them. And of course, again, I was very traumatized, very angry. Shortly after living with them, I'm pretty sure it was around 8 months, and I'm 7.5. My grandpa died. Suddenly. It was he was in the hospital. We knew, something had happened to him. I think it was a brain aneurysm, and then he was gone. And so not only did I feel like I had basically lost my mom, because I hadn't seen my mom in a year. She was a mess. And then I lost my only father figure, my only protector that I'd ever known.
Was he still in your life for those 8 months that you were living with the new people?
I don't really remember, that time, but I remember, always wanting to see him and have visitation, with them. Yeah. So I lost him. And at his funeral, I didn't even know his real name. I always called him just my grandpa, but then everyone called him Scooter. That was his club name. And when on the news article, it had put him out there as Byron. I was like, who's Byron? That's not my grandpa. And they were like, yeah, it is. I was like, I didn't know that. And so, of course, I was distraught. And Tim and Lisa were the first people that I took it out on. And I know that, I shouldn't have done that. Don't condone it, but that's what a child does.
I was going to say, at 7.5, you don't really know any better. And I feel that's the age that all a child really knows how to do is act out because something's wrong. Yeah. Whether it's for attention or to seek help, they don't really know. You're not in an age yet where you can communicate really and express what's going on.
Yeah. So I was taking things from Lisa. I was acting out. And around 5th grade, I started having dreams that Tim was sexually assaulting me. And I think now I don't have, 100% proof. But I think now, it was happening, and we'll talk about why. So that had happened. I was having those dreams, and CPS came, and talked to me. And I said, it was just dreams, I just told a friend, that I was having the dreams, and she told, and understandable. And I just told him it was dreams, and nothing came of that. Shortly after that, I had gotten out of the shower one day, and I saw that the blinds were peeked up just a little bit. And I saw a green light like coming out from one of the blinds. And so I pulled it up fully naked, just got out of the shower, and it's a camcorder. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm probably in 6th grade. So I just put the blinds back down and I just act like it never happened because I didn't even know what to do.
Right.
And so a little bit after that, Tim came to me like that day and said, oh, I was just recording you because I wanted you to see how long that you would take in the shower, sir. And so, nothing came about that either. And then in the 7th grade, Tim took me to Jack in the Box. We went and got tacos, and then he rented the movie The Men That Stare at Goats. And then we got home and he started massaging me, which was something that he actually did often. Like, it was nothing sexual that like I could remember, but it was something that had happened, since the time that I had lived there in the very beginning till now I'm, in 7th grade, which we'll talk about, later too. But yeah, he started massaging me and I fell asleep. And then I woke up and his hands were in my pants. And so I laid there for a quick second because I was like, this is a dream, this is a dream. This isn't happening. Like, this is your mind playing tricks on you again. And then I snapped out of it again, a quick second later. This is not a dream. This is happening to you. And so I got up really quick and I just went to my room and I didn't go to sleep that whole night. I just looked at that door because I thought he was going to kill me. Like, I thought there's no way like he's going to let me live because he knows that I'm going to tell, he's going to kill all of us in this house. Like, I stared at the door all night. In the morning, I'd gotten up and I had said, I have 2 options. I'm going to tell somebody. And if they don't believe me, then I'm going to kill myself. And so I called my Nana. And my Nana had actually lived like around the corner from me, but she also had a house in Oklahoma. And so that weekend she was in Oklahoma, but she had answered and I had told her and she said, I'm in Oklahoma, but I will be back, soon today. When I get home, I will call you and you can come over and we can talk more. I said, okay. So she called me and said, I'm home, come. And so I did. But leaving the house, Tim saw me and he said, where are you going? And I said, I'm going to Nana's house. They have cable. So we didn't have cable, made up a lie. And he said, okay, but I wanted to talk about last night. And he was like, I just wanted to say, I'm sorry, but men have needs. Yeah. Disgusting. So I went to my Nana's house and I had told her what happened. And then when Lisa got home from her job, we told her what happened and the police came, and arrested him and he went to jail. But Tim only got 6 months and it was a lesser charge than like sexual assault. He did have to do 10 years probation, but that was nothing to compare to, I feel like, having to piece my life back together. Yeah. After you being, somebody that was supposed to be a dad figure and my grandpa trusted you, to take care of me and you completely shattered that. Yeah. And so he is also deemed a non-violent sexual offender. He did have to, plead as a sexual offender, and register every year. But he can do everything. He can go to schools. I was told, he was going to football games. He was being able to do everything. You had no real consequences except for your name being on a piece of paper. So that made me so angry.
Yeah, understandably so.
Yeah. And I took that out 100% on Lisa because I had felt like it was partly Lisa's fault because Tim was abusive to her.
Did she stay with him?
No. So they ended up divorcing, thankfully. But before, he had sexually assaulted me, he was abusive to her. He would hit her. I saw many times, him spit in her face. She has a biological son, and I would try to, shield him away from all that when they were arguing like that, so ugly. And so I definitely felt like it was her fault that this happened because it was also her job to protect me. And I felt like that didn't happen. She could have prevented it. And so I took that out on Lisa 100%. I also became very promiscuous. I talked a big game, wasn't doing anything, but, I definitely was saying all these things because that was the only control, that I could have at that time. I became bulimic. That was, another thing that I could control. I was self-harming myself all over my arms, my legs. And Lisa had saw one day that I was doing that. She had saw the scars, and she had said to something along the lines of like, do you want to kill yourself? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, well, that's not the way that you do it. Yeah.
What is wrong with these people?
Yeah. Yeah. So she sent me to the mental hospital, and she had sent me there a couple times after that for stuff like that.
I'm surprised that she even sent you there.
I know. But it was crazy being there because I was like, I'm not supposed to be here,
How long were you there for? Do you remember?
Usually for a week or two.
Okay.
Yeah. And the last time that she put me there, I remember I was there for 2 weeks, and she came and she was like, you're never coming home again. And it was because I was on, I believe at that time it was ADHD medicine, but the ADHD medicine was making me so angry. And so I didn't want to take them anymore. And so I just started like stuffing them like in my drawer. And then she found them and she was like, you could have killed your siblings. I'm like, first of all, they're not supposed to be in my room. Second of all, it's at the top shelf. And I did that for that specific reason, just in case. I always thought about my siblings.
And that was their kids?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. She had remarried after Tim. And so it was now another set of kids. But she also had like her biological son. And so that's the one that I really say is my brother. But yes, she was like, you could have killed him. And so you're never coming home. And so she put me in a homeless shelter for at-risk youth.
How old were you?
I was 15.
Okay.
Yeah. I was 15, and while I was in this homeless shelter, she had said, my therapist told me to get rid of you a long time ago. Everyone, didn't want you. Your grandparents didn't want you. And I remember just like slamming the door in her face, just being so angry. Like you could say something, like that to a child still.
I don't know how it all works, and I'm not sure if you do, but how does that work? Like, since you were still 15 and underage, like if she put you in a homeless shelter, like that doesn't get reported or like anything like that?
I think that it does because it was told to me, that she was notified that she had to come get me within a certain time, because if she didn't, that they were going to call the police on her.
Yeah.
And so she did. But before then, there was a staff member there that was taking care of us. And she knew that I went to a local school. And she was like, did you hear about the local teens that died recently? And I was like, no, not recently. Like the one that died like a year ago. And she was like, no, it was recently. And I was like, no. I was like, but can you like let me know? She was like, yeah. She was like, one of them was this really beautiful girl. She was in her quinceañera dress. She was like, and then this like older boy. And I was like, do you remember like any of their names? And she was like, yeah, the boy, his name is Ivan. And in that moment, I like had a feeling because one of my friends was hanging around with a senior. I'm pretty sure he was a senior, and his name was Ivan. And I had told her that I didn't agree because I thought that she was going to get in trouble. And so I said, the girl, can you find out, what the girl's name is? And she was like, yeah, when we get back to the other center, I'll show you on my iPad. And so we were literally getting lunch. I had the tray in my hand, and she turned the iPad around. And it was my best friend. And her name is Jeanette. Sorry.
No, you're okay. Take your time.
And so it was her. And she was actually somebody that like we called cousin. I'm not sure if she was actually biologically cousins, but let's sidetrack a little bit. We had went to a football game like in middle school together. And my biological brother was there. And like I was talking to Jeanette, and my brother was like, how do you know our cousin? I was like, what do you mean? I was like, that's my best friend. He was like, yeah, we're cousins. And so I don't know if, if that's actually, something, but we called each other cousins.
Hey guys, today's episode is sponsored by Aura Frames. Something that I find myself doing quite often is going through my camera roll on my phone. And I love to do it because it reminds me of all of the amazing and special memories that I've had in my life, whether they were fun, silly moments with friends and family, obviously a bunch of pictures of all of my pets. There's always something on my camera roll that can definitely bring a smile to my face. But the only downside to that is that all of them are only on my camera roll, and I only really see them if I sit there and scroll through. And that is where Aura Frames comes in. Named the #1 digital photo frame by Wirecutter, Aura makes it so effortless, I cannot express it enough, and simple and easy to upload all of your photos, your videos right to the frame so that you can see all of these pictures in front of you, show them to any guests that come and visit the house so that all of these amazing memories are not just stuck in your camera roll on your phone. And with the new year right around the corner, something else that I've really been trying to break the habit of is being on my phone so often. And obviously, having this picture frame helps me so much with that because I don't find myself making the same excuse of, oh, let me just scroll through my camera roll and look at old photos. Now I can just glance at my picture frame, see my best memories, my favorite moments, bring a smile to my face. Also, something that I've noticed is when some pictures of friends pop up, it reminds me how much fun I have with them, that I need to reach out to them more often because I love them all so much. And that being said, something else I want to throw in there is if this is something that would make a good gift for one of your friends or even a family member, something really unique and special is that you can preload these frames with different pictures and videos before you actually gift it. So I feel like when somebody opens it and unwraps it and plugs it in, they can really see the effort that you put in to their gift, and it really makes it unforgettable and super memorable. Save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver mat frames by using promo code INSANE at checkout. That's auraframes.com, promo code INSANE. This deal is exclusive to listeners, so get yours now in time for the holidays. Terms and conditions apply. And now back to today's episode.
And so, I had found out that she had passed away. Well, I had called Lisa and I was like, Jeanette passed away. Like, I need to go say goodbye to her. Like, I need to see her. And she was like, well, you can't. And I was like, why? Like, I need to go. And she was like, the funeral was yesterday.
So she knew and she didn't even tell you.
Yeah. And I think I had said to her, like, I will never forgive you for this. Like, I hate you. Mm-hmm. And I just hung up. And that's something that I still struggle with to this day, like not being able to say like bye to her. But that was really hard, losing her. And then Lisa ended up taking me on my 16th birthday to the Methodist Children's Home in Waco, Texas. Shout out to them because they saved my life. And that is one good thing that she did do for me, is take me there. I finally got on right meds. They, did trial and error until they could figure out what was right. I never had ADHD. It was something totally different. I was in therapy every week. I had constant love and reassurance and stability and people working with me every single week, every day.
Was it more of like a group setting? Like with other kids there?
Yeah, a group home, yeah. And so there were different homes, like structured homes and then like non-structured homes. I can't remember what that was specifically called. But I came into a home where they monitored me pretty much 24/7 for the bulimia and the self-harm, which was really good because I couldn't do it anymore. Yeah. And then I, broke the habit and got the help that I needed. I have this one case manager that I had, and her name is Miss Corsi. And I was starting to have really bad panic attacks to the point I was passing out. And the Methodist home, I don't think had ever seen like a case like mine of people passing out like that and having panic attacks. But Miss Corsi, like, she handled it so good. Like, she gave me all the tools I needed and tools that I use till this day. And I still talk to her till this day. Like, if I ever need anything, I'm in contact with her. And she is amazing.
That's great.
Yeah. A little while after being in Miss Corsi's care, I moved to a more like relaxed home where I wasn't monitored all the time. And I lived with a set of home parents, we called them, and it was Mr. Steve and Miss Debbie. And I still talk to them as well. They're amazing. I try to see them once a year, and they're like a second set of parents to me. So that was really good.
How long were you in that setting for?
I was in there for 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
That included living with them too, like the other parents? Okay.
Yeah. So it was just like a different house, like, I don't know, just like down the street. Yeah. So I don't like saying like a compound, but like it's like a university and like there's tons of houses for boys and girls that live there. That's but amazing. We're all separated. Yeah.
Were they doing education as well?
Okay. Yeah. And that was really good as well because I got like one-on-one. And I really struggled in school as well because of everything that had happened. I never felt like I could focus on school because of everything else that was always going on in my life. And then just, I feel like my like most important like young years, I was just in so much turmoil that my brain wasn't taking anything in.
Right.
So I was behind, and Methodist Home caught me up and I was doing one-on-one care with them. I was doing summer classes with them and it was just really good.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. During this time I was at the Methodist Home my senior year. My brother had called me, one of my brothers, and he had said, hey, our mom, I think was still maybe in prison at this time, but she's in prison and she was caught not trafficking people, actually. She was bringing people over the border. So she was helping them cross what we call a coyote, but she was helping them and she got caught doing that. So she was pregnant and she put that baby up for adoption while she was in prison. And he had said, this is the lady's name. Go look her up. That has our sister. And so I did. And I started liking all the pictures of my sister. Most beautiful baby ever. And she reached out to me. And her name is Michelle. And she, sorry.
Take your time. You're okay.
She, had said like, oh, are you Elizabeth, Amber's daughter? And I had said, yeah. And she was like, I've heard all about you. And so we started talking from there. And over the next few months, I started opening up to her more. And I had gone on visits. I had gone, I think, for my sister's second birthday, I believe. And that was so cool, being able to be a part of her life, because I felt like I really wasn't able to be a part of any of my biological siblings' lives from the like very beginning like that. And so I got to be a part of that. And I remember on Christmas, still my senior year, Michelle had asked me, what are you doing with your family for Christmas? And I had said something like, they're not coming to get me. And she was like, what do you mean? Who's not coming to get you? And because I hadn't told her, you know, at this point where I actually was, who I was in the care of. And I had told her, and she says that, you know, that's the moment that she knew that she wanted to adopt me, that her and her husband, Brandon, had talked about adopting another child. Just didn't know it was going to be an older child. And so I had told her, and again, we were just talking and building that relationship. Michelle and my sister and my biological mom actually came for my my graduation. And that was amazing because that was something that I thought would never happen. Right. My biological mom like coming, and she was actually sober, you know, during
how
this
was
time.
She was doing good at the time?
Yeah, she was doing really good, you know, at this time. And it was a miracle because I don't remember, you know, really a time like that with her. And so that was a really good time. I eventually let Brandon and Michelle adopt me. They asked me, and of course I said yes. That took, you know, a lot of time.
I was going to say, I'm sure, was that like a long process or?
It took, you know, I think about a year, maybe a little bit over a year. Okay. But, over still all of the years of constant reassurance, that they're not leaving me, no matter, what I've done or what I say or anything, like there's nothing that I can do that is going to make them not want me anymore. Yeah, they adopted me. A really sweet moment that I always think about is they had asked their kids, what do you think about Elizabeth, becoming your sister? And they had said like, well, I thought she was already our sister. And so that's just really sweet.
Really sweet.
Yeah. And after that, my mom was not doing well. It was very, short-lived of the sober life. She became pregnant again. And
how many children did she have?
6.
Okay.
Yeah, she would have had 10, but she has 6. And so this was the 6th one. And his name is Romeo, but she had nothing for him, not even a car seat. And so she was going into labor, and she got into labor, and they had said, like, you have to have a car seat. If you don't, like, you can't leave the hospital. And she was like, okay. And so I had went to get her one. And when I was coming back, she was calling me when I was inside the parking garage. I just had a feeling something was up. And she had said, where are you? And I had said, I'm in the parking garage, like, I'm coming. And she was like, okay, hurry. So I did. And when I got in there, she was like, you need to take Romeo. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? She was like, you need to take him. He was born with drugs in his system. And like my heart just sank. I was like, what the hell, girl? And I was just like, no, like I am 19, like I'm going to college, like what the heck? Like, I don't know how to do this. And then I'm like thinking in mind, like, okay, like I can do this. I'm just gonna, drop everything. And I step outside and I'm having a panic attack in the hallway of the hospital. And I call my adopted mom now, Michelle, and I told her everything that was going on. And she was like, no, you're not taking, Romeo. We will, figure this out. He has a family that wants him. Michelle and Brandon have really good friends, and we call them the Grimes. And they had wanted Romeo from the very beginning. I had always said, if she doesn't, want to do this, then we'll take him. And so I went back in, with my mom and my biological mom, and had said, you need to give him to the Grimes. And she was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take him. Like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be okay. And that was the first time like I had ever like yelled at my mom. And I was like, no, you can't. Like, you can't do that. You have none of your other kids. Like, what the hell do you mean? No.
Especially too, because I feel like if she was ready for that, then he wouldn't have been born with drugs in his system.
Exactly. Yeah. And so he ultimately had to go into the foster system, and we fought for him to get into the Grimes family, to be placed there. But I think it was 10 months that he was in the foster system. Every single Monday at 6 o'clock at McDonald's, I would go to visitation so I could see him. I always wanted him to know somebody was there and was fighting for him, and that loved him, because, I'd never felt that way. And I always wanted him to know he had someone. And so I was there. And even sometimes when my biological mom wasn't there, I was there. She was trying during this time, but it was definitely not what she was exactly supposed to be doing. There was calls, being made. My brothers found her like drinking mouthwash. Like, that's how bad it was to just get, some kind of something, in her system. And so it was not working. And she did a paternity test, because the person that she said was the father, was not the father. And he was like, yeah, no, like, I'm not doing this then either. And then she ultimately gave up her rights, and they started the process for the adoption. But during that time, it was really hard, because I don't know exactly why, but the CPS, somebody had told like the foster family that had him that nobody really wanted him. Like, he didn't have a family. And that wasn't true at all. Like, we had fought for him from the very beginning. And so the judge, like on one of the times, he was like, no, he's already been, in this care of these people, for so long. He was like, let me like revisit. And like, I was like physically like not okay after that. Like I was sobbing, and I saw like the judge like look at me. And I really think that like affected him, because the next time after that, he was like, yeah, like I grant it, they can go. And so my brother, his name is Micah Romeo now, but he went to go live with the Grimes and is happy and healthy and living his best life. Yeah. During that time that I was fighting for my brother, I was in a really abusive relationship too. Mentally and physically. There was times where he would punch the wall and my face, my head was right there, right beside it, and just inches away from punching me. Doors ripped off hinges, holes all over walls, apartment completely destroyed. And he hit me, and that was it. That was my one time. It had always been like muffing, like pushing, or threatening, stuff like that, but it was never actual hits. But this time he had actually hit me, and I had left, and I never looked back. But it was really hard for me to leave him, because he kind of had like a similar like background to me. And I had felt like everyone had left him. Like, I can't be another person that left him too. And so that was really hard to do.
I think too, it's easy to bond with somebody when you feel like you have a similar background.
For sure. Yeah, that trauma bond, for sure.
And then I think too, it's like you almost make excuses in your mind of like, well, he's this way because of this.
Yes.
Like I understand. So
I'm the one person that understands him. Yes. Yes. After that, a few years, fast forward, I am living with my ex's family, but they weren't my ex, back then. But I was living with my ex's family, and I got a call from one of my sister's adopted dads, and he had said, your mom died. She drank herself to death. And it was always, a phone call that I was waiting on, but I never really thought it was going to be from somebody that I knew. So when it was always like random phone calls, like I would pick it up because I always knew, this is going to happen. And so he was the one to call me and tell me. And my ex's mom just held me while I screamed and I cried.
Did you have a relationship with her at this time, or?
My mom? Yeah, I did. It was definitely estranged. I tried not to see her because it was just really bad for my mental health. After I would see her, I would spiral. And so I definitely would pick up every single phone call that she would call. And the last phone call that we had, I'm 99% sure she was on drugs or alcohol, because she was repeating the same thing and slurring. And she had just said, this, addiction is a disease, and I'm so sorry, and I just love you so much, and I just hope that you understand. And I didn't say, anything to that, because I was just angry, except for I love you too. And I'm fine, with that being our last conversation, because at the end of the day, she knows that I loved her too. So she was found in an abandoned house with a whole bunch of other homeless people. She was homeless, obviously, and bouncing around, and had just drank herself to death. I was 22. I didn't know how to plan a funeral. Nobody tells you, how to do something like that, let alone a 22-year-old. And I was the oldest sibling, and she had told me before, we had conversations about this, that this was coming if she wouldn't act right. And so I asked her, what would you like? And she had said, I want to be cremated. I don't want everyone to see me. I don't want people to be reminded of the way that I look at that point. She didn't want them to see her. And I just said, okay. And she was like, I want you to be in charge of everything, because I know you're the more responsible one. You're the older one. And you're going to make sure that what I want is what's going to happen. And so I did. I called my adopted mom, Michelle, and she helped me navigate everything and helped with so much. And I had a great support system during that time.
So did you were all of your siblings notified, your biological siblings?
Yeah, so I had called all of them myself, except for my sister, that her dad is the one that told me. So her dad told her, but all the rest of them, yeah, pretty much, except for I think my little sister Stella, my adopted mom, told her. So yeah, that was rough, you know, having to tell them. Navigating that, the funeral part, you know, was hard, but the support system I had was really great. After that, I kind of started to spiral. I definitely felt very suicidal. I was living in a place where it was like kind of countryside. And so there was very like windy roads, and a point in my drive one day getting home on my way home, I was like, I could just go off one of these roads and everyone's going to think it's an accident, you know? So it would be less traumatic, you know, for everybody, you know, they wouldn't think, you know, that I did this to myself. And I think maybe a couple of days after that, I had told like my adoptive mom, hey, like, I think I need to start therapy. I think something's wrong. And so I did. Shout out to Terry, because she's the best therapist ever. And so I've been with her, I think, since I was 22 or 23, like now as my therapist. I definitely was not completely honest with her, like in the beginning, because I was like trying to like feel her out, you know?
I think it takes time too to really open up, and you know, you want to make sure, I feel like, that you're finding somebody that you're going to stick with. Yeah. So it's like you don't want to pour it all out and then have to do it again if it doesn't work out.
Yes.
So it does take time, you know, to find the right person. And then I feel like to really, I think even within yourself, to be ready to face the trauma that you've been through and really talk about it. Because I feel like you don't just go into therapy, I feel, or not everybody goes into it just ready to lay it all out there and be like, this is what happened and I'm ready to sort through it. I feel like you have to reach a point in your life where you're really to start, like you're ready to start healing.
Yeah. So for a while there, I feel like the first like year, I really wasn't like completely honest. And then I was living, you know, with my ex's family, and I was going to break up with him because I just felt like we weren't on the same page about some things. And so that was really hard for me because their family had become like my family. Like I loved them so much. And so I felt like it was another thing, you know, that I was losing, another like grief, you know, that I had to go through. Yeah. It's something that I didn't plan. You know, I planned on being with this person, you know, for the rest of my life, and that's not what was happening.
Yeah, and I feel like you had that negative mindset around loss. So it's like, instead of viewing it like this might not be the best thing for me, you view it as like another grief and something. It's like you almost don't want to do it because you don't want to feel the pain of it.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was really hard for me. And so after that, I got bad. Like I started drinking like 3 nights out of the week, like blacking out, getting drunk, just not wanting to deal with anything. I was still going to work, but yeah, those days that I was not going to work, I was drunk and I was not okay. Eventually, after a while, I realized like, hey, you're doing the same thing that your mom was doing.
Yeah.
It was a lot easier to drink and to do drugs to her than to feel everything that she felt and to go through the emotions and to sit with the grief and to process everything.
And deal with it head on.
Yeah, because all of those things are really hard, and
it's easier to like cover it up and cope.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was just like a slap in the face. Like, hey girl, like you're no better. Like you're doing the same things. And so I really started to be honest, you know, with my therapist, and I stopped drinking like that, and everything, you know, was good. I am now in a relationship. I've been with him for almost 4 years now, and he has a daughter, and she is the highlight of my life. She is amazing. She's a really good girl, and she's 6, and now I'm just navigating, you know, stepmom life and you know, healthy parenting and stuff like that. I'm just trying to be, you know, everything that I never had, and everything that I wanted. And that's just my main goal of right now, is just being a healthy parent and a healthy partner.
Yeah.
And he's so very patient with me because I am still working on myself 100% all the time.
And that's normal. And I was going to say too, you know, it's easier said than done, and it's difficult, but the only person that's going to change the course of your life is yourself.
Yes.
You know, and I feel like obviously everybody's life can take so many different paths, but when you're set up with a life where, you know, you experience trauma and constant loss and grief and all that stuff, I feel like it's very easy to follow that similar path for yourself. And like we were saying, just the easiest way to cope with that is to numb the pain. Nobody wants to feel sad.
Yes.
A lot of people don't want to go through those feelings, but I think that it says a lot that at such a young age and with everything that you went through, that you were able to change that path and direction for yourself. And I feel like to quickly turn it around and know, okay, like, I don't want to go down this path, and the only way I want to change it is to open up and be honest.
Yeah. So
I think that says a lot about you and your strength and what you want for yourself, because clearly you want something better for yourself, which is important. And a question that I had was, so now do you have a relationship with all of your biological siblings?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm estranged with one of my siblings, my brother that's right underneath me.
Okay.
I feel like we're estranged because he's a lot like my mom.
Yeah.
And so that's really hard for me because there's a victim mindset. And I feel like, again, like, you can do anything. Like, no matter like our background, no matter what we went through, like, you can be your change, you know?
You have to want it.
Yeah, you have to want it, and you have to find your motivation. And my motivation was my siblings. Like, I knew I'm the oldest out of 6 siblings. I have to do this for them. Like, they cannot see me, you know, go down this and think that this is okay. And then also, you know, all the people I felt like that doubted me, that thought, you know, I was such a bad kid, you know, that I was going to be nothing in life. Well, I'm going to prove you wrong.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I feel like all you can do is set that example and be the best version of yourself for yourself. But then also, like you said, to kind of like set that standard to them and show them like you can be better.
Yeah.
But it's difficult. I mean, 6 is a lot. And every person has a different personality, and everybody handles grief differently and trauma and life experiences. So it's almost like you have to have that sympathy, because obviously you 100% understand it. You were there too, you know, you get it. But yeah, it's like at this point, you kind of just have to take it as it is and be like, look, all I can control is myself.
Yeah.
And you can follow it or you cannot, you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. But it's difficult, I'm sure.
For sure, yes.
But I'm glad that you're doing good now.
That's
amazing. Yeah. And like I said, it's you're 28, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like I feel like all of this still happened at such a young age for you. And I mean, I say this all the time also on the show. There's so many years of healing and growing, you know, that journey never ends.
Yes.
So where you are now, that's only going to progress. And then also at the same time, you could have days or weeks where it kind of feels like, oh, I'm not feeling that great this week. And that's okay too, because the lows are just as normal as the highs. And I feel like it's kind of a good thing, because when you hit those lows and you have those days, when you get out of it and you learn how to kind of, I guess, find healthy ways to cope with that and learn to get through that, then it happens less and less. And you start to experience that less, and you start to have those higher days more frequently. Yeah. You know, you learn how to get through it. You learn how to kind of challenge yourself and, I guess, find the person that you want to be and get on the healing journey that you want to be on. But it takes time. You know, it's not something that comes quickly or easily. And it's a process for sure. Yeah. But obviously, I think, I mean, this kind of goes without being said, but coming on here and willing to be, you know, vulnerable and open up about your story and the things that you've been through and where you are today, that takes a lot of courage, and you should be proud of yourself.
Thank you.
Of course. And you did an amazing job. Seriously. Was there anything else that you wanted to touch on?
I think that was pretty much it.
Well, good. No, I mean, you did amazing, really.
Thank you.
I think, like I said, too, it's really important because your story touches on, I feel like, so many different things that people can go through, even just the aspect of you know, the adoption, and it's interesting to me because it goes to show like it's never too late. Like you can have a family at any age, and you deserve to. Everybody deserves to feel wanted and loved. And I think it's amazing that you got that, you know, and I feel like now you're at a point in your life where, like you said, you can give that to, you know, other little children and, you know, your stepdaughter, right? Stepdaughter. And I think that's great. And it's amazing. So, but thank you so much for wanting to come on here and share your story with the platform. It means a lot to me. Of course. You did a really good job.
Thank you.